Let's look at an example where we're factoring a trinomial where it doesn't start with just x squared and you have a number here, something like 4x squared plus 20x plus 16. I'm going to show you two different ways of doing this problem, starting with the AC method. Now the AC method is actually going to be factoring by grouping, and it's going to take these pieces and break them up so they have more things in common. So here's the process for doing the AC method. You're going to find two numbers that multiply to your A term times your C term. A is the first number, B is the second number, C is the third. So my A is 4 and my C is 16. 4 times 16 is 64. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me 64. And I'm just going to start to make a list of those things already. I have 1 and 64. I have 2 and 32 multiply to give me 64. I have 4 and 16. I have 8 and 8. So I'm looking for a pair of numbers that multiply to A times C, and I want them to add to that middle number B. That middle number here is 20. So I'm just going to go through and check the pairs to see how they add up. 1 plus 64 gives me 65. That doesn't work. 2 plus 32 gives me 34. That doesn't work. 4 and 16 gives me 20. That's the pair that works. Now, once you find this set of values that works, you're going to split that center term. So I've got 4x squared plus 20x plus 16. I'm still going to have 4x squared. I'm still going to have 16 at the end. But I'm going to break up this 20x in the 4 and the 16. So I'm going to have 4x, and I'm going to have 16x. So whatever numbers I find that work, I'm going to put them in the center with the variable. And just double checking, 4x and 16x, this is just another way of writing that 20x out. Now that I've got this as 4 terms, I can group them. And maybe I group the first two things and the last two things. Remember, you have options when it comes to grouping. And I'm going to try to factor out components to each of these. So these share a 4 and an x, so I'll pull out a 4x. 4x times x gives me 4x squared. 4x times 1 gives me 4x. So that factored pretty nicely. Let's look at this piece. Looks like 16 goes into both of these. 16 times x gives me 16x. 16 times 1 gives me 16. And I got really lucky because these share something in common. They share this x plus 1. So I can pull that to the front. That gives me 4x plus 16 times x plus 1. In the front or in the back, either way. So factoring 4x squared plus 20x plus 16, that factors to 4x plus 16 times x plus 1. Now you might be looking at these and thinking, okay, but these have 4 in common. So if you want to do an extra step, you could pull out that 4. 4 times x gives me 4x. 4 times 4 gives me 16. So another way of writing the same answer is 4 times x plus 4 times x plus 1. Now I said I was going to show you two ways of doing this. The other way is actually going back to an earlier strategy, which is, if possible, start with that greatest common factor. And if I'm looking at 4x squared, 20x, and 16, you may notice that these all have 4 in common that you can pull out from the very start. If you do that, that leaves you with x squared, 5x, and 4. Now I have a nice trinomial here that starts with just an x squared, So I can try to find a pair of two numbers that multiply to give me 4, but add to give me 5. And those numbers are 4 and 1. 4 times 1 is 4, but 4 plus 1 gives me 5. So if I'm using this GCF strategy, I can do this thing in 2 steps. So factoring by grouping using this AC method will work, but it's really time consuming. If you can start to find other ways of factoring using GCF or special forms, you'll be able to do the same problems but a little bit faster. Ultimately, that's up to you. Factor in a way that you feel comfortable.